morally, I was led to nonviolence because I felt that it was the best moral way to deal with the problem. We were seeking to establish a just society. And it was my feeling then, and it is my feeling now, that violence is certainly much more socially destructive, and it creates many more social problems than it solves. So I was led to nonviolence for deep moral reasons. And I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary? Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Hatred will never drive out hate. Let love roll down, roll down. Remember, our hearts can make us great. Let love roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary? Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. Let your love roll down like a mighty stream. When brutality threatens our daughters and sons, let peace roll down, roll down. May our voices rise up louder than the guns. Let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary? Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let peace roll down like a mighty stream. Step by step, one by one, let justice roll down, roll down. They can kill the prophet, but the dream lives on. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary? Walk together, believe in the dream. When the way gets rough, we'll make a new way. And let justice roll down like a mighty stream.
I turned to it because I felt that it was the morally excellent way to deal with the problem of racial injustice in our country.
Let us wake up, not just from the Sunday morning exhaustion or the wish for a few more moments in bed. Let us wake up to the world we live in, to its beauty and wonder, but also to its tragedy and pain. We must wake up to this reality, that not all in our world have what we do, no matter how little or how much that is. We must wake up to the idea that our wholeness, our lives, are only as complete as the lives of those around us, of those we are inextricably tied to in a great web of mutuality, of which we are all a part. We must stay woke, in the words of our friends and colleagues in the Black Lives Matter movement, who are working every day for racial justice in our country. Let us wake up, let us stay awake, let us stay woke. And now, in this time and place, let us worship together.
altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love. All that I am, I offer at the altar of love in sweet surrender, in sweet surrender.
Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our great covenant.
Ya-da-da, ya-da-da-da, ya-da-da-da-da-da, ya-da-da, ya-da-da-da, Dark of winter, soft and still, your quiet calm surrounds me. Let my thoughts go where they will, ease my mind profoundly, and then my soul will sing a song, a blessed song of love eternal, gentle darkness, soft and still, bring your quiet to me. Darkness soothe my weary eyes, that I may see more clearly. When my heart with sorrow cries, comfort and caress me, and then my soul may hear a voice, a still small voice of love eternal. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through me. Darkness, when my fears arise, let your peace flow through
I have an illustration to share with you that comes from Todd Hassick-Lowy, who is also the author of a book we've just added to our Children's Diversity and Justice Library collection here at the church. It is right there. It's called We Are Power: How Nonviolent Activism Changes the World. And in a video shared on his website, Todd introduces the concept of nonviolence in this way. Now, first he says that the argument of the book, We Are Power, is simple. It's just those 3 words, we are power. And he says that the normal way that we think about power, that it belongs to a president, a general, whoever's in charge, is actually not correct. And he goes on to give this illustration. He says, say you're on a soccer team. Who has the power? The coach? Why is it that you might think that? Well, on a kids' soccer team, the coach is the adult, right? The coach blows the whistle, and the coach decides who plays how much, if at all. And most soccer coaches are awesome. They are great. But right now, we're going to talk about the one coach who isn't. In fact, this coach is mean. Mean coach's rules are unfair. Mean coach likes to scream, and when players mess up, mean coach makes them run laps. And one day, player number 7 decides that she has had enough. Mean coach tells her, take a lap. And you know what she does? She says, no. And mean coach says, now. And she says, no. What do you think happens? Mean coach says, you're suspended. Now by herself, number 7 is no match for her coach. But something has already started to change. Mean coach said, what? Said take a lap, but 7 didn't. And all those times before that 7 ran laps, it was because she was agreeing to run laps. She always had the power to refuse, but she didn't. Why do you think that is? Perhaps it was because she feared mean coach, and she thought mean coach had all the power. She didn't know that she had any choice in the matter, but she does. She can refuse, as she just did. And when 7 accepts punishment instead of obeying, right, she gets suspended, cracks start forming in mean coach's power. But so far, right now, 7 is still stuck with mean coach. Now she's riding the bench and not playing. So she decides to ask some of her teammates for help. And she says, will you back me up if I refuse to run laps again? Now, the other players don't like mean coach, but they don't want to stick their necks out because they've seen what mean coach can do. They want to play. They don't want to run laps, so they don't help. But secretly, they want to. So now it's the next day, and mean coach orders 7 to take a lap, even though she had a great practice. And what do you think she says? She says, no. And mean coach says, now. But this time, other players come up and stand with 7 around her. Now, what is happening? Mean coach can't suspend everyone. If most of the team shows that they'd rather forfeit the next game than be coached by a mean coach, there is nothing that this person in charge can do. Mean coach has to change if they want to keep running the team. And if they want there to be any team at all, right? Mean coach only has power as long as the rest of the team agrees to give mean coach the power. Once they refuse and show their willingness to endure punishments, mean coach is powerless. Together, the players have more power than the coach, but they have to come together and they have to stick together to claim this power. And once they do, though, they can use it to create change, to transform their team into one that treats every player with respect. And they can do this non-violently, right? So what is it that they are doing? They didn't go out and try and find a bigger, meaner adult to threaten mean coach. They refused to participate in Mean Coach's unfair system. Separately, the team players are powerless in this system, but together they have incredible power. And what's true about a soccer team is true in a lot of other places too. It's true in a society. The powerless have power when they resist together non-violently. And that has been seen again and again. Whether there's 10 of them or 10 million. Who has the power, friends?
What Martin Luther King said about violence as protest. Violence as a way of achieving racial justice is both impractical and immoral. I am not unmindful of the fact that violence often brings about momentary results. Nations have frequently won their independence in battle, but in spite of temporary victories, violence never brings permanent peace. It solves no social problem. It merely creates new and more complicated ones. Violence is impractical because it is a descending spiral ending in destruction for all. It is immoral because it seeks to humiliate the opponent rather than win his understanding. It seeks to annihilate rather than convert. Violence is immoral because it thrives on hatred rather than love. It destroys community and makes brotherhood impossible. It leaves society in monologue rather than dialogue. Violence ends up defeating itself. It creates bitterness in the survivors and brutality in the destroyers. In a real sense, nonviolence seeks to redeem the spiritual and moral lag that I spoke of earlier as the chief dilemma of modern man. It seeks to secure moral ends through moral means. Nonviolence is a powerful and just weapon. Indeed, it is a weapon unique in history, which cuts without wounding and ennobles the person who wields it. I believe in this method because I think it is the only way to reestablish a broken community. It is a method which seeks to implement the just law by appealing the consciousness of the great decent majority who through blindness, fear, pride, and irrationality have allowed their consciousness to sleep. The nonviolent resistors can summarize their message in the following simple terms. We will take direct action against injustice, despite the failure of governmental and other official agencies to act first. We will not obey unjust laws or submit to unjust practices. We will do this peacefully, openly, cheerfully, because our aim is to persuade. We adopt the means of nonviolence because our end is a community at peace with itself. We will try to persuade with our words, but if our words fail, we will try to persuade with our acts. We will always be willing to talk and seek fair compromise, but we are ready to suffer when necessary and even risk our lives to become witnesses to truth as we see it.
We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's soldiers of the rose. Every round goes higher, higher. Every round goes higher, higher. Every round goes higher, higher. Soldiers of the rose. Do you think I'll make a Savior? Do you think I'll make a Savior? Do you think I'll make a Savior? Soldiers of the rose. If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? If I stumble, will you help me? Soldiers of the rose. Go back to the first verse. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. Soldiers of the rose.
This is a reading by Mahatma Gandhi, and its title is "It is Possible to Live in Peace." Every time you hear me say that sentence, "It is possible to live in peace," join me. Let it resound throughout your heart, your soul, your household, with the people next to you. It is possible to live in peace. If someone with courage and vision can rise to lead in nonviolent action, the winter of despair can in a twinkle of an eye become the summer of hope. It is possible to live in peace. Nonviolence is not a garment to be put on and off as well. Its seat is in the heart, and it must be inseparable, part of our being. It is possible to live in peace. Nonviolence, which is a quality of the heart, cannot come by an appeal to the brain. It is a plant of slow growth, growing imperceptibly, but surely. It is possible to live in peace. If a single person achieves the highest kind of love, it will be sufficient to neutralize the hate of millions. It is possible to live in peace. If we are to reach real peace in this world, and if we are to carry on a real war against war, we shall have to begin with the children. It is possible to live with peace. The future depends on what we do in the present, and it is possible to live in peace. Again, it is possible to live in peace. Joys and concerns, prayers of the people. I sit here and I can tell you that there are people who are ill and recovering from COVID, and some people are still mentally saddened by not being able to embrace their friends, to visit, to have dinner. I can tell you about a world where people seem to be in denial that we are in a pandemic and continue to act, endangering all around them. I can tell you about people who have lost their loved ones and they face this new year trying to deal with first time without them for Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July. I can speak to people who are unnerved by the events that happened last week and wonder where our country is headed. But this I do know. I do know that we as a community have the power to strengthen, to comfort, to nurture, and to care. And we have that power through the source that is within ourselves, our light, our love, because we carry the image of the holy inside of us. Sometimes I don't know what to pray for. I don't know what to ask for. I don't know what to say. And so today I will rely on you to bring your thoughts, your needs, your desires into this space. And I allow you to be quiet with me and also to join me in prayer. I have sat with the holy in meditation and allowed my mind to wander. I have sat with the holy and relived all the grievances and anger and frustration and pain. And I have sat with the holy when feeling ill, distraught, sad, depressed. I have sat with the holy when I am feeling great joy and knowing that this world is a beautiful place and that there are gorgeous, loving, kind, compassionate people. And I have sat with the holy when I've watched children be hurt, destroyed, lost. And now I sit with the holy, knowing I'm in community with people who we all care to do what's right, but sometimes fail. I sit with the holy, knowing I am the one who fails the most, struggling to do what is right, struggling to do what I feel is needed to be done, struggling to be the light that I must be in order to show people that we are one. Be happy, be joyful, be glad, and be blessed. For the holy is with us in many ways that we don't know. Amen.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us today at TVUUC. My name is Claudia Presley, and I'm the Director of Administration. Today is a Share the Plate Sunday. What that means is that any contribution that comes in today that is not marked as a pledge will be split between the General Operating Fund of TVUUC and the designated Share the Plate organization. This week's organization is SEED, SEED. EEED, 3 E's. You'll be seeing a short video later that explains more about what they do. We ask you to be generous if you have the means to do so to help this organization. The ways you can give are you can go to tvuuc.org/give, or you can text give to the number 73256, type in TVUUC and the amount that you would like to give. Once again, thank you for joining us and have a great day.
I'm with Stan Johnson from SEED, that's SEED with 3 E's. Stan, tell us about SEED and what you all do.
Well, SEED stands for Socially Equal Energy Efficient Development. We train inner city youth on green technology. We want to highlight weatherization, solar panel installation, community gardening, and also recycling. So what we do is we have a 8-week training program. We want to make sure that people get put in the right job at the right time so they can actually plant a good seed so they can grow.
How many young people have been through the program?
Oh my goodness, we've had over 200 young people through the program. These young people do all kind of wonderful things, and they actually get paid while they're going through their process here. We train for 8 weeks, so the first 3 weeks that you're here, you're gonna be basically doing life skills, right? Showing up on time, being able to shake hands, look somebody in the eye, being able to do the basic things that we need in corporate America. Once you do that, then we put you into what we call job skills. And what those job skills are, we're gonna learn how to build resumes. We're gonna learn how to write cover letters. We're gonna learn how to do interviews.
Now, one of the programs that you've been doing is going out to people's homes at low-income families and helping to weatherize their homes.
Yes, one of our biggest problems in our community is how old these homes are, right? So these homes were not weatherized when they first got in. Most of them were built before 1978. We highlight how can you save money on your utility bill? Well, by getting your home weatherized. So we actually bring the employers in to actually train the classes so they get to meet people on a one-on-one basis.
One of the big hurdles that these young people face is transportation, if they don't have a car to get to the job.
So what we do is we team up with different people. Some of the churches that help us out, sometimes we ask them to meet us here, and we'll take you to your job. As long as you can get here, we usually say we can get you to wherever you need to go. Hopefully by their first paycheck or second paycheck, they can get a car. This is a wonderful place called the land of opportunity that we live in. But if you're not exposed and you don't have the experience, you don't have the educational level, certain things are gonna be closed off to you. But we have the opportunity to actually knock on those doors and see how you can actually do those things. So that's what we wanna really talk about right here.
With many of our young people, they just don't know all the opportunities and career pathways that there are out there. You try to show them that there's all these other pathways open to them that can really make their dreams come true.
Almost definitely, because again, this is America. So we want to break that cycle of poverty, and we've nothing stops the bullet like a job. So we want to make sure that this is happening in our own community.
Switching gears a little bit, how has COVID-19 impacted you?
COVID-19 has knocked us on our backside, Mayor, to be honest with you. We hadn't had any classes since March because we can't really have people inside. So what we're looking forward to is for people to come alongside of us and start thinking about how do we train outside, right? We're doing weatherization, but now we want to launch into how do we build a whole house? So we're going to need help from the citizens of this great community, still at least keep training people outside with that process.
If someone is interested in SEED, interested in helping, how do they contact you?
They can contact us directly here at the building at 865-766-5185 or SEED Knox Facebook, and they can definitely contact me as Stan Johnson as well.
Stan, thank you for your time, and thank you so much for all that SEED does for our community.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate you being here.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle around to tend these fires. We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now
time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
We shall be known by the company we keep, by the ones who circle round to tend these fires.
We shall be known by the ones who sow and reap the seeds of change alive from deep within the earth. It is time now, it is time now that we thrive. It is time we lead ourselves into the well. It is time now, and what a time to be alive. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love. In this great turning we shall learn to lead in love.
I told my friend Barbara Kemper that I had an idea for a club, and she actually designed a poster for the club for me. The name of my club is Bald Guys for Peace. And of course, any such club would have to include the Dalai Lama or Pope Francis, but today I want to talk about this bald guy, Mohandas K. Gandhi, better known to most of us as Mahatma. Now, this title, Mahatma, means great soul, and it's reserved for a once-in-a-lifetime spiritual teacher whose teachings echo down through the century. Since most of us don't aspire to be Mahatmas, since most of us don't aspire to be saints, what can we learn from Gandhi? This morning I want to talk about some of the teachings of Gandhi that we can apply in our own life, even if we are too modest to wear a loincloth. It may seem strange to talk about an apostle of nonviolence during these violent times, the most recent insurrection at the Capitol, the violence in our nation's heart, and with threats of violence for capitals all across the country. It seems like we live in an age that is captivated by the drama of violence and disenchanted with the politics of nonviolence. However, Gandhi does offer us some lessons for our times, especially if we're willing to learn from his mistakes, as well as the power of his example and his wisdom. You may not know this, but there are many connections between the Unitarian Universalist tradition and Gandhi. The Unitarian minister John Hayne Holmes, who served the Community Church of New York, met with Gandhi and corresponded with him, and wrote one of the first books about Gandhi for American audiences, called My Gandhi. Now, John Hayne Holmes not only studied Gandhi, he practiced Gandhian principles of nonviolence by organizing social justice movements, being a founding member of the ACLU and the NAACP and other organizations for social change. Now, when I was a young man, a very impetuous young man, I read about a Unitarian minister named Homer Jack. And I was reading Taylor Branch's book about Dr. Martin Luther King called Parting of the Waters. And he mentioned how Homer Jack, this Unitarian minister, came down to Montgomery, Alabama during the Montgomery Bus Boycott and helped activists learn the practical application of Gandhian principles of nonviolence. Since I was young and impetuous, I decided to pull out the UUA directory, and I looked up Homer Jack, and I called him up and just started a conversation with him, and he was surprisingly gracious, considering this call was just completely out of the blue, someone he did not know. And he told me about how his passion for Gandhi helped lead him to have the privilege to meet Dr. Martin Luther King and to be able to work with him in the early days of the civil rights movement. You can read about Homer Jack in Taylor Branch's book, Parting of the Waters, or you can read about him in his own autobiography, which is aptly named Homer's Odyssey. However, we do not have to look to the past to appreciate the powers of nonviolence. Many of Gandhi's teachings can be applied in our own lives in our own time, on the personal level, on the social level, on the political level, and even the environmental level. The Greenpeace movement, for instance, was founded on principles of nonviolent change. We can practice them in the microcosm of our families, in our neighborhoods, or in the macrocosm of global politics. Gandhi has a lot to teach us, especially if we are willing to learn from his errors as well as his wisdom. Gandhi said nonviolence is always the choice of brave people and strong people. He said a weak social justice movement can't be said to have renounced violence any more than a mouse can be said to have renounced the power of killing a cat. So the secret was to tap into the power of nonviolence and to work for change grounded in that power. Nonviolence is not about impotence. Nonviolence isn't about conflict avoidance. Nonviolence is about having courage to work for transformation and change. For Gandhi, one of the most important spiritual qualities that any of us can have is fearlessness. We must overcome our fear of any external obstacle to our spiritual journey and our goal of working for justice. We must overcome our fear of death, our fear of disease, our fear of losing friends, our fear of losing our job, our fear of losing our reputation. We must overcome all fears and tap into that sense of fearlessness. Once we overcome the fears that debilitate us, we can tap into the power that can liberate us. Like Gandhi's time, we live in a time when people are using force and coercion to try to intimidate people, to capitulate to what they want. To that challenge, we must bring fearlessness. Our church was very active in the civil rights movement of the 1960s, especially the sit-in movement that desegregated lunch counters in downtown Knoxville. I once met an older member of the church who said that he didn't participate in the sit-in movement because he didn't have enough confidence in himself to remain violent. If people were throwing things at him or hitting him, he didn't have enough confidence that he would remain nonviolent. I would argue that he was a part of the nonviolent movement because he belonged to a church that supported a nonviolent movement. He supported a church that supported the movement. So I think that's the important principle of nonviolence, is to get in where you fit in, to know yourself, to know what you have to offer, to know your strengths and limitations, and get in where you fit in. Gandhian ideas of nonviolence have always informed the work of this church on civil rights, human rights, women's rights, LGBT rights, and all sorts of efforts that we work in the community for peace and justice. We've always been informed by these nonviolent ideals. We have faced physical force and violence. We have faced violence and intimidation. But the important thing is to meet physical force and political force and coercive force with soul force. To meet all of these other powers with spiritual powers. So if you don't feel like you can live up to this ideal of nonviolence, you need to know that Gandhi didn't live up to the purest form of the ideal of nonviolence. He felt he made compromises. He was a practical idealist. He felt it was nonviolent to restrain someone who was out of control and might be hurting other people, that nonviolent choice might be to contain that person until they regain their self-control. He felt if you were a parent or a guardian and someone came in and threatened children with violence and you protected them, that was nonviolence. That was your nonviolent duty to protect using force. He felt that force to prevent genocide was also a form of nonviolence. And he also said if you see an animal who is suffering and you choose to put that animal out of its misery, that too is a form of nonviolence. So it's not about pie in the sky ideals, it's about practical idealism. One of the things that I've always been fascinated about Gandhi is his ideas about God, and his ideas about God might even appeal to an atheist. He said, God is truth, and truth is God. We are called as spiritual people to seek the truth wherever it may take us, to seek the truth regardless of the consequences. Take it wherever the truth will lead us. And in that spirit, he said, God is truth, God is love, God is ethics and morality, God is conscience. God is even the atheism of the atheist. In other words, God is fearlessness. We don't have to agree with Gandhi on everything in order to learn from him. Recently, I was reading a biography of Mahatma Gandhi, and I texted my children. I said, I've gotten to the point in the story where he tries to talk his adult son into moving back home to the ashram with him and encouraging his son to practice lifelong celibacy. I said, I just wanted to let my own children know this so that you would feel better about your upbringing. Indeed, Gandhi's ideas about human sexuality contrast with the ideas found in Unitarian Universalism, where we encourage a lifelong process of education about human sexuality that is sex positive. Margaret Sanger, the founder of the modern birth control movement, Planned Parenthood, and sex educator, she disagreed with Gandhi on his approach to human sexuality, but they had a friendship anyhow. They corresponded and they met and they continued to learn from each other. So even when we disagree, we can learn from each other. There is one area where I feel like Gandhi has a lot to teach us in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, which is about interfaith understanding. Gandhi's own family that he grew up in had an interfaith dimension to it. His mother was Hindu, but she also studied Jainism, and the Jain tradition has even more teachings about nonviolence than the Hindu tradition. So Gandhi's nonviolence may have been influenced by this Jain tradition. And one of the things that the Jain tradition teaches is the many-sidedness of truth, that we look at life and truth through many different angles, and we see it from many different perspectives, and there's no way to do otherwise. So every statement of faith is a partial statement. No statement of faith is the whole truth. And so every statement of faith would begin with the word siyad, which could be loosely translated as maybe. So maybe this is true, or maybe that is true. Or another way that it could work is it would sound like, from this perspective, this is true, or from this perspective, this is true, or from that perspective, this is true. There's just an acknowledgement that every statement of faith needs to be made with that understanding that we see everything from different angles and we see things from different perspectives. And when we speak about religion, we are drifting into the area of ineffability. We are trying to think the unthinkable, say the unsayable, know the unknowable. And so we need a little humility, a little bit of maybe, a little bit of from my perspective in every statement of truth. From this idea that truth is many-sided, Gandhi drew the conclusion that all religions are equal. Hinduism, Islam, Christianity, often rivals for adherents. He said all religions are equal. He said a saint that feels superior to another person is no longer a saint. And a religion that feels superior to all other religions misses the very point of religion. And that's why I felt that everyone could benefit from a friendly study of the world's religions. And if you traveled to visit with him, the ashram would have prayer services every day, and it might begin with a Buddhist meditation, and then a reading from the Quran, and a reading from the Hindu scriptures, or a reading from the New Testament. he drew wisdom from many different sources. Now, Gandhi considered himself to be a faithful Hindu, but he would tell people, he said, in order to be faithful to my wife, I do not have to disparage other men's wives. And so to be a faithful Hindu, I do not have to disparage other religions. He felt that all religions contain truth and all religions contain flaws, and that everyone should seek to remove the flaws from their own tradition. And one of the flaws that he found in Hinduism was the practice of untouchability, treating a certain group of people as untouchable, outcast, where you couldn't dine with them, they couldn't come to temples, you couldn't even let their shadow pass over you. They were totally kicked out of society. And he said, if you could convince me that untouchability, that the practice of untouchability is part and parcel of Hinduism, then I would throw away Hinduism like a rotten apple. In other words, if you could convince him that the practice of untouchability came from God, then he would rather be an atheist. And that's what he meant when he said, God is truth, God is conscience. God may even be the atheism of the atheist. In India, Gandhi is called the father of the nation, and his image appears on the currency accordingly. Today, we tend to think of Gandhi as a success because he successfully led a nonviolent revolution against the British Empire that led to India's independence. And yet, in his latter days, he considered himself a failure because what he wanted was one India. And what he got was a partition of a predominantly Hindu India and a predominantly Muslim Pakistan. He wanted unity and he got division. He wanted the elimination of untouchability, and he did manage to get many of the laws changed and the Constitution changed. But, local practice often lagged behind the law. He wanted nonviolence, and yet when partition happened, violence erupted, and between 1 and 2 million people died in the conflicts between Hindus killing Muslims and Muslims killing Hindus. So he really felt like a failure in his last days. When we think about how do people feel about Gandhi in India today, I come a comparison closer to home. How do people feel about Al Gore in Tennessee, who's won the Nobel Peace Prize? Well, there's a lot of conflicting opinions, and there's a lot of people who hate as well as love him. Same thing with Jimmy Carter, who won the Nobel Peace Prize in Georgia. So we can see how a prophet isn't always appreciated in his hometown. And that is the way Gandhi is and felt by many Indians. He's not always appreciated in his own town, even though he's the father of the nation. And so when everything was falling apart, oddly enough, and when Gandhi was feeling like the biggest failure, that's when he may have made the biggest difference, because he went to the big cities of New Delhi and Calcutta to try to address the violence and try to stop the violence, and traveled into dangerous places to try to stop the violence, and had hunger strikes to stop the violence. And this may be where he made the biggest difference of all. This is where historians say he may have made his biggest contribution, restoring peace to two nations torn apart by war, bringing together a clearer sense of Hindu-Muslim unity, and ending the violence in the aftermath of the Declaration of Independence of India. In the end, Gandhi was not killed by a Muslim. He was a Hindu. He was not killed by a Muslim. He was killed by another Hindu. And that Hindu was angry at Gandhi for working for peace with Muslims. So he died for his willingness to work for peace among people of different religious traditions. His last words were Hey Ram. It was one of the many names of God, the God that is truth, the God that is love, the God that is ethics and morality. Gandhi was a very complex person, and no one sermon can do him justice. I invite you to come to the virtual coffee hour. We'll have a breakout group and a sermon discussion. We'll talk about Gandhi and some of his complexities. When he died, he had only a few material possessions. He lived a very simple, austere life. And I also aspire for simplicity, but I need to be honest and say I own at least 20 books about Gandhi, and so I own more books about Gandhi than he had material possessions. I'll make two recommendations. This book, if you're interested in the religion of Gandhi, this one, Gandhi on Christianity, is an interfaith dialogue with Christian leaders. And this book, Gandhi's Religion, a Homespun Shawl. These are great books, the best one-stop shop for anyone who wants to learn more about the religion of Gandhi. The last time, I'm in the youth group room, and the last time I took the youth group to Boston for our Boston Unitarian Universalist Heritage Trip, we visited the homes of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and we went out to Walden Pond to see the cabin that was built by Henry David Thoreau. Gandhi was influenced by the writings of Henry David Thoreau on civil disobedience. And he read Ralph Waldo Emerson when he was in jail and called him my American guru. So the relationship between Gandhi flows both ways. We've influenced him, and he has influenced us. Gandhi influenced Martin Luther King, and in that same trip, we went to Boston through Atlanta, and we went to the Martin Luther King historic site there, and we paused, the youth group paused before the statue of Gandhi to reflect on his influence and his legacy. And so when Martin Luther King was leading the march in Washington, many people were afraid that violence would erupt. There was a lot of paranoia about violence erupting when Martin Luther King led a march. Well, when our president organized a march last week, maybe we should have been worried about violence. It obviously did not work out well. So, presidents and prime ministers and people of all faiths have something to learn from Gandhi and King about how to organize a march for nonviolent social change. Gandhi was not a perfect man, neither are we. He found that in committing to nonviolent social change, he not only worked for social change, but in experienced personal change. And he started out as, a young man kind of trying to be an Englishman, and then gradually growing a simpler lifestyle over time, not all at once. And so we too can commit to spiritual growth and practical idealism and gradually change. Not all of us can belong to the club, Bald Guys for Peace. That club is a little bit exclusive for a lot of different reasons. But all of us can learn something from Gandhi. All of us can work for nonviolent social change. Or as Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world.
We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday.
May love permeate. May love permeate your every heartbeat. May faith guide your every step. May truth and compassion be your eternal traveling companions. And may a deep, abiding spirit rest joyously in your every waking wish and your every resting dream.
Let people living in all lands declare that fear and pain are gone. Rise above differences and stand in love and understanding one.
I invite you to come to our virtual coffee hour, and there'll be a breakout discussion from the virtual coffee hour where we can talk more about the sermon, or you can just stay and mingle and socialize at the coffee hour. So wherever you go this week, remember to reach out, text somebody, email somebody, come to the ministers check-in on Thursday or some other online event this week. Let's find ways to stay together in this time of pandemic. Go in peace.
There is no freedom, the wise man said, let justice roll down when the poor cry out for shelter and bread. Let justice roll down like a mighty stream. Oh, children, don't you get weary, walk together, believe in the dream.